What's going on, guys? It's Paul here, and I thought I would introduce you to the new studio. Clearly it's still a bit of a work in progress, and if you are interested in following this build, I will have a link in the description to my other YouTube channel so you can follow along over there. But that's not why you're here today. You're here because KEEN has just announced a new pair of hiking shoes, boots, and they sent me a pair so that I can test them out and give you guys my thoughts. They are the NXIS EVO mids. So I have actually opened these up to take a peek at them, but I haven't worn them yet because I wanted to take you guys along for that ride. So this is what they look like. This particular color is primarily gray and black with some blue accents over here. You can also get those, I think, with red accents there. And if you're into more of a safety vest color, they have that as well. Now, just looking around the outside, I'll start actually with the bottom here because it's got a nice aggressive tread, good grip on the bottom. On the front, it has a pretty solid cover there for the front of the toe box. That's nice for those rocks that you don't see until you slam your foot into the rock. Little toe protection there. Most of the upper is covered in this mesh, although it is a waterproof mesh. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then they have reinforced a few areas here with what I believe is TPU, which is thermoplastic polyurethane. And I only know that because we sometimes use TPU filament in 3D printers. But it's got some extra reinforcement there. The laces are, well, they're laces, not much to say there. But as you can see right here, when you tighten up that lace, it actually has that blue string that runs all the way around the heel. So that's made to, when you tighten up the shoelaces, it also tightens up all the way around the heel to kind of keep your foot locked toward the back of the boot. Now, moving around to the inside of the boot, there is, on the back here, right there, there's an extra little ridge right above the heel, and I think that that helps to keep your heel locked in and keep your foot from sliding up and down in the boot. This fabric that says KEEN Dry is all the way around the inside. That fabric comes up to right here. So this boot should be completely waterproof all the way up to about this point. But of course, I'm going to be testing that for myself. Wow, there are a lot of words. This looks pretty epic. It says,
"We're on a journey to lighten our environmental footprint, walk the walk, and give back more than we take. Every step makes an impact. Consciously created for a better planet. KEEN."
I've never been so inspired by an insole before. Now, when I first pulled these out of the box, I was surprised that they feel much lighter than what I was expecting. I haven't yet weighed these on my scale at home, but I will do that, and I will place the weight right up here, and that's going to be for each individual shoe, not for the pair. Okay, I think that's enough talking for right now, and clearly the sun is setting pretty quickly here, so I will continue this from the trail. All right, we are now on the trail for the first time with the NXIS EVOs, although not my first time wearing them since the last clip that you saw of me in this video. I did wear them around for a couple of days just to try to break them in. I did have one day that I wore them for about 14 hours straight, and I'm liking them so far, but no replacement for actually having them on the trail. So we're doing 3 days. I think it's going to be about 17 miles. Not super high mileage, but should be good first impressions. So weather's nice right now, but there is rain in the forecast, so should give us a chance to test out the waterproofing. Okay, we have just set up camp for the second night, and I wanted to take a second to talk about trail runners because, as you may have seen on my channel and for a large portion of backpackers out there, we've switched to primarily using trail runners on trail. And for good reason. Trail runners are super lightweight. So where do boots like these fit in with trail runners, and why might I choose to use these on a particular trip over trail runners? Well, the primary difference for me comes in with waterproofing. So my philosophy is that when I'm planning my gear for a trip, I'm either going to go with something like a trail runner that is very light, that is breathable, that is not waterproof at all, but if I get it wet, it's going to dry more quickly. Now, as you might have guessed, that's not the best option to go with in cold weather because wet feet can be fairly dangerous in cold weather. So in those cases, I certainly would prefer to go with something waterproof. And if I'm going to go with something waterproof, I want to go with something with a slightly higher ankle than standard trail runners. So at least in my opinion, neither one is going to be perfect for every trail. For some trips, I'm going to go with a trail runner, and for some trips, I'm going to go with a waterproof boot. Okay, I'm back home now, and as you can see, these are no longer brand new, but that was an excellent weekend trip. If you live anywhere near Alabama, check out the Skyway Loop Trail. I recommend it. But how did the NXIS EVOs do? Well, before I give you my thoughts on these, I want to point out that I am specifically titling this video as a first impressions because I don't think that a 20-mile trip is enough to justify it being a full review. So keep in mind, this is still just my first impressions. But with that said, I'm a give me the bad news first type of person. So I'll start with the one con that I had with these boots. And that is that little ridge on the back there that helps hold your heel in place. On the very first day, we did about 6 miles, and I started to get a little bit of a hot spot on the back of my ankle from where that ridge was rubbing. And on a typical trip, I probably would have put either Leukotape or moleskin over that hot spot so that it didn't get any worse on the rest of the trip. But because I was testing these, I specifically did not put anything on it. And I thought that maybe it was rubbing because the shoes had loosened a little bit throughout the day. So on the second day, I decided to tighten them up after we had been a mile or two on trail. And it actually seems like that made it a little bit worse. The hot spot got worse throughout the second day, and on the third day I decided to leave them a little bit looser, and I didn't have any issues with them on the third day. And it was still just a hot spot, it never actually blistered up, but that was the only issue that I ran into with these shoes. So with that one negative out of the way, I'll tell you what I really liked about these. And the very first thing that I noticed when we got on trail was how flexible these are. I've had hiking boots in the past that were really rigid, and the very top of the toe box there, every time I would take a step, that toe box would rub on the top of my toes. It wasn't much of an issue other than just being really annoying, but I did not notice that with these. These were nice and flexible, very comfortable to walk and hike in. Another thing that stood out to me with these is just how good the grip is. And I know I showed you earlier in the video the tread on the bottom, but I thought that my trail runners were grippy until I tried these. They gripped really well. On this trip, we had quite a variety of terrain, certainly some flat and dry spots that were no problem, but we also went through a few areas that were pretty muddy and slick. These gripped really well. And we also went through an area that was almost entirely rock, and that was where it really stood out to me just how grippy these shoes are. In fact, I think I only slipped one time the entire trip, and that was where the trail crossed over a creek, and I jumped across to the other side onto a slick rock at an angle. That's gonna be slick right there. By the way, I don't recommend doing that. In hindsight, we definitely should have found a better place to cross. Another thing I really liked about the NXIS EVOs was how lightweight they were. I've had trips with boots in the past where by the end of the hike, I felt like I was having to forcefully pick my feet up because the boots were heavy and my legs were just not having it anymore. That was not the case with these. In fact, I'd hardly noticed a difference weight-wise from using trail runners. Also, I was really impressed by how breathable these boots were. My feet did sweat a little bit because I was actively hiking and it did get pretty warm during the day, so your feet are going to sweat a little bit, but for a waterproof boot, I was really impressed by how breathable these were. Now, speaking of waterproofing, waterproofness and breathability tend to be the two aspects that are in constant competition with each other. It's really hard to find anything that is both breathable and waterproof. And because these were so breathable, I was a little bit worried about the waterproofing. Now on the trail, these did really well. When we went through the mud puddles, my feet stayed dry. We had a couple of creek crossings that were pretty shallow, so I just kept my boots on and my feet stayed dry. And on that last day, we had a little bit of rain. Again, my feet stayed dry. But I was not leaving these submerged for very long because I was continuing to hike. And I'm curious to know how these would actually do if they did have to stay submerged for any amount of time. So I want to test that for myself. Okay, it has been about 15 minutes now. And after about 5 minutes, I started to notice some dampness on the inside. And then that continued. So it's been 15 minutes now, and I wouldn't say they're totally saturated, but they definitely have a little water on the inside. So I would not call these 100% waterproof. These are not what I would choose if you were going to be in standing water for a long period of time, because that was with them totally submerged. But if you're just doing general backpacking, you just have a quick creek crossing or some mud puddles, I think that these will be perfectly fine. So I posted a poll on the community tab of my YouTube channel just a few days ago, and I asked which type of hiking shoes or boots you wear, whether waterproof, non-waterproof, or depends on the particular trip. And so far there have been about 382 votes on that poll, but leave me a comment down below and let me know what type of shoes you prefer to go with. And if you want to see more from our hike on the Skyway Loop Trail, you can click the little video right below me. You can also give this video a like if you found it helpful, and thank you for watching.